Everyone's out here with the Z Flip 7s, and here I am with the Z Flip 1. How did we go from this to this? Let's go. Samsung make a lot of phones, and in 2020, at the S20 Unpacked event, before the flagship slab phones of the year were launched, Samsung showed off the Galaxy Z Flip and introduced the Z series to the world. The whole premise of the flip phone was that it was a cover screen on the front that was compact and portable that could then unfold into a fully sized smartphone. Not unlike the flip phones of the past, but obviously with more functionality. The twist on it was that it did have a little cover screen here that you could interact with. View notifications, check the time, control media, and if you really needed to, a tiny little preview viewfinder for the camera. But we'll get to that. So in the 5 years since this has come out, the biggest change is to the cover screen now with the Z Flip 7. We've gone from that tiny preview to basically a full-size smartphone. And I say that because this is almost the same size in terms of inches as the original Galaxy Fold. 4.1 on the Z Flip 7 versus 4.6 on the Galaxy Fold. Obviously, aspect ratios are wildly different. The notification, I don't even know if you can call it a window. Maybe a slit was a wild concept, especially for the size. It's similar to the way that the OG Fold was comically small, but it was also done intentionally in the same way the Fold one was. One, for aesthetics, because it lines up with the camera that is sort of on the same line as it, but two, because Samsung wanted you to unfold the flip and use it in that unfolded state. They really wanted to create that attachment and that familiarity with the hinge in folding and unfolding, and putting a tiny window in here was them making you unfold it. The thing is, unfolded, it wasn't quite the normal smartphone experience because it was a little bit narrower compared to what normal phones were. I have got a full 1 through 7 Galaxy Z Flip lineup comparison coming, and what you'll find in that video is this is the first time since the Flip was created that Samsung have changed the aspect ratio on the inside. The Flip 7 is both wider and taller, 6.9 inches versus 6.7 on the original Flip, and it's a 21:9 aspect ratio versus a 22.9:9 on the original Flip. So you've just got more room, it's more natural because it's that little bit wider, and you just feel like you're using a more normal phone when it's open. But that cover window frees you up to use it closed way more because you've got that nearly bezel-less 4.1 inch screen on the front there. Samsung have enabled it to do more, not only through the Good Lock modules, where you can activate any app to be launched from the cover screen, and there's some clever software that allows you to change the aspect ratio to suit the app that you're using, or whether you just want to play a game, and there's little sort of bite-sized games that you can activate through Good Lock, and then you could play them on the cover screen if you just want to kill time. But they've also enabled way more widgets, and they've made it easier to sort of access the widgets because you can now stack them together on one card to activate things like the calculator or voice recorder should you want to launch a voice recorder from there. Samsung have also enabled the oneui 8 stuff like the Now bar on the cover screen of the Flip as well. Some people will say that Samsung should have put a full smartphone UI on the front. I disagree, and I think Samsung do as well, obviously, because again, it's an intentional move to ensure that you have that point of difference between the cover and the inside, getting you to go from that cover screen to the internal one. And it's great because when you are launching an app, similar to the way the Fold does, you can open it up and it goes straight into the inner display on the same point of the app that you were using. Above all else, Samsung still wants you to unfold this thing, or is it unflip? I'm not quite sure of the correct terminology there. Interestingly enough, from 1 to 7, the camera placement has remained the same, although it has shifted along the variations of Flips as the years have gone by. But with 7, they're now back to that horizontal placement. But obviously, with a huge camera sensor upgrade from the original Flip to this one. Part of the OG Flip design, which is still present today, is Flex Mode. The Z Flip 1 was actually the first foldable from Samsung to feature a hinge that could stand on its own. It's definitely not as tight as what today's hinges are. The Flip 1 will kind of lose the hinge strength a little bit further away from closed versus the Flip 7, which will actually be able to sort of stay open at sort of much tighter angles than what the original Flip could do. Naturally, this found its way to the Folds and all the other Flips as time went on, but it started here. The most important aspect that Samsung marketed at the time for the Flex Mode was the cameras. It was in all of their launch promotional materials, which made it even more odd that Samsung would launch the Flip with this tiny cover window and enabled it for camera preview. The concept was amazing, but the execution was awful. Any controls that you wanted to have of the camera experience, you'd basically just be covering the entire window with your finger, which would kind of render the whole preview thing pointless because you can't even see what you're framing up or what you're controlling. But the controls were super limited anyway. You could only press the screen to go between the wide and the ultra wide cameras, and then to activate the camera, you used palm selfie. I can't do anything with this. I can literally tap for ultra wide and tap to go back. God, that mirror is so strong with the mirror purple. Whew. There was also the option to use the inner 10 megapixel camera for selfies, again in flex mode. But why would you? It's a terrible camera and you've got a much better experience on these cameras here. And you could activate the cover screen from the flex mode state from the inside too. You could also use it closed to take photos, where you could double press the power button and launch the camera and again, see that tiny preview. It's a small preview and I don't know how Samsung thought that looked good. Fast forward 5 years and you now pretty much have an almost full camera operation from the front of the Z Flip 7. Enough to see all of your imperfections, enough to go through all of the camera modes, and even zoom. You can zoom up into different zoom ranges as well. And 50 megapixel mode is available from the cover screen too. Not only do you have the extra controls on the cover screen, but you've also got different camera modes. You now have portrait mode, you've got standard photo mode, which you can control many things inside of, and also video mode, again, where you can change resolution, change aspect ratio, and do some different things with it. Okay, this is better. This is 4K 30 using the rear camera on the Z Flip 7. I'll record this so you can see what this looks like. So this is literally how you can get ultra good quality vlogging, and this is how you can just hold it like this. Like, it's so compact and so small. The original Z Flip 1, you couldn't do this. Like, look at that versus what you have to deal with on the Flip 7, because the preview cover screen was terribly small, but also you could only use photos, whereas this is both photos and videos and also portraits as well. But again, the essence of the Flip was still there in that first one, and it's just carried its way through and improved as the hardware's improved. As far as the output goes, well, the cameras on these were already behind in 2020 when it launched. So you can only imagine how it's not going to stack up well against the Flip 7, which its cameras also are a little bit behind as well, but they're far superior as to what we have over here, and you can see that. The biggest difference is definitely video output, and this is the direct comparison of the Z Flip 1 over here and the Z Flip 7 over there. I'm using the rear cameras on both. It's obviously a lot easier on the Flip 7. Like, if you have a look at the Flip 7's cover window versus the Flip 1, it's just so much easier. This is so much better. I really can't line myself up properly. But we're not testing that. We're testing the microphone, probably quality difference, but also I just want to test the video quality. That's really where you notice, I think, the camera improvements is the video. And the bigger sensor, the better processing, absolutely favors the Z Flip 7 here, which it always was going to because it's a 5-year generation gap. It's something about the Flip. It always gets the worst end of the stick when it comes to cameras. I imagine it's something to do with space and how it hasn't really got as much internal space as what a normal phone could have, especially as you've got a hinge that goes right down the middle and then you've got two tiny bodies, top and bottom. There maybe isn't enough room to put the best possible cameras in there. The original one was the perfect example of that. Two very mediocre 12 megapixel cameras, a wide and an ultra wide. But it was never about the quality at the forefront. It was always about what this form factor allowed you to do, the flexibility it gave you. Pun intended. If checking out the OG Flip wasn't retro enough, then check out this case from Subcase, the Unicorn Beetle Pro. The Unicorn Beetle Pro is the epitome of protection for your Galaxy Z Flip 7. Featuring a tempered glass screen protector inbuilt into the cover display window and hinge protection for the other part of the case, this will protect your phone from any drop or any surface that you put it down on. Not only does it have protection, it's also got functionality. It takes advantage of the Flip form factor by allowing you to prop it up in that vertical format so you can take advantage of all of your social media scrolling. And to really go with the Flip retro vibe, you have a belt attachment. You can clip this into the belt attachment to really lean into the retro Flip vibes. Just clip it in, walk around, and when you need it, unclip it, and then when you need to, clip it back, and you will be really cool and retro. If you want to get protection for your Flip 7 from the start and bring the retro flip vibes, check out the link in the description, and thank you to Subcase for sponsoring this video. That flexibility remains, and it's been expanded now through software optimization when you've got things like auto zoom and auto framing, and you've also got things like camcorder mode, which allows you to hold it like this and then have a bit of a different software experience to take advantage of. In terms of performance and software, Samsung actually weren't too far away with the original Flip when it comes to the software experience. The Flex Mode hinge kind of enabled them to bring software enhancements straight away to the first generation. It had that Flex Mode for certain apps. It was mainly limited to Samsung first-party apps and some Google apps like YouTube or Gallery when it comes to Samsung, but it was there. But Samsung have matured the Flip software and enabled more things. Not only do you get the cover screen software, which enables extra stuff and extra functionality, watching YouTube videos on the cover screen is wild, but it introduced Flex Mode Panel. Flex Mode Panel being the software that forces any app to support Samsung's Flex Mode. And you can do that through advanced features in the software, in the settings, or a little button will appear in the bottom corner, which you can press, and then it'll activate the Flex Mode Panel. And then you've got a little touchpad, you've got a little scroll wheel, and some extra stuff that you can do with it, which sort of turns any app into that Flex Mode support. Something that's been awesome is that Samsung have finally added DeX on the Z Flip 7, which I think is a great move because people love having like pocketable power, and having something this compact be able to use Samsung DeX with it, awesome. And they've got 120 Hz on both displays, and you'd notice no 120 Hz on the Flip. It's so obvious. Samsung have also addressed the Flip's biggest concern in years gone by, battery capacity. They've slowly been increasing it as the years have gone on. Started off 3,300 milliamp hours on the original Flip, which back then wasn't enough. So the fact they've now pushed an extra 1,000, whilst also making it thinner and a little bit lighter, but giving it a bigger screen, both inner and front cover, really nice. 4,300 milliamp hours will be plenty on a phone like this. Overall, Samsung have improved everything about the Flip range, from Flip 1 through to Flip 7. Cameras? Check. Cover screen? Triple, quadruple check. Inner display? 100% check. Design and durability? Check. You've gone from no water resistance at all to IP48. Huge. I would say the overall essence of the Flip still exists here. I would say this is a much more polished first generation product than what the OG Fold was. This is closer to where we've ended up than what the Fold was and where we've ended up with that. Samsung is still holding on to what this was. Even though you've got the bigger cover screen, the better cameras, the more durable hardware, everything that was here is still kind of in the Flip. Samsung have limited the cover screen software, so you still can't do everything on there because they still want you to unflip it, unfold it. Either one's fine. It's almost like the cover screen remains that sort of convenience display, almost like a smartwatch with a little bit more that you can do with it, versus just giving you a full smartphone UI. I think it's more purpose-built than what you've got on other flip phone variations, because other flip phones, they're just giving you the full smartphone experience and it could get a little convoluted. Whereas here, I think you know which one you can use for what. Use the cover screen for convenience and then unfold it and unflip it into a more natural smartphone usage. I think if you can use a Flip 7 or even a Flip 6, or for that matter, I think you could use one of these today. This holds up in the Flip form factor range, even if the cover screen's comically small and the battery life and the cameras are terrible. If you like comparisons like this, including a full Flip 1, Flip 5G, Flip 3, Flip 4, Flip 5, Flip 6, and Flip 7 comparison that's upcoming, then hit subscribe to Tech with Benefits, because this is the place where you'll get all of that. I'd love your support because these phones weren't cheap to get. Anyways, watch them. That's how you can support me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. You!